The statements and opinions expressed in this episode are those of Dr. Sigman and his guests, and do not necessarily reflect the views of Veradigm.
It's time to do healthcare smarter. This is Smart Medicine, hosted by Dr. Scott Sigman, empowered by Veradigm. So for our doctor listeners, I have a serious question for you. When was the last time you actually collaborated with the doctor outside of your own specialty? Was it last week, last month, or perhaps even last year? In medicine, you don't know what you don't know. That is exactly why collaboration matters. To me, it is one of the most powerful parts of this profession. Learning from each other, borrowing from other people's expertise, and ultimately doing right by our patients. And I know I'm not the only one who feels that way. My guest today has built an entire platform around that very idea. That is Dr. Rohan Ramakrishna. He's an award-winning surgical neuro-oncologist and neurosurgeon. And when he's not doing that extraordinary work, he is also the co-founder of Roon, a platform built on a simple but important premise. Trusted, science-backed knowledge from the best minds in medicine should be easier to access and easier to share. So if you want to hear how some of the best doctors in the game are sharing information to improve outcomes, stay with us. Welcome to Smart Medicine.
Thank you for having me, Scott.
So, Rohan, your background is fascinating. You're a clinician, you're a researcher, you even spent some time as a student in philosophy. And now, obviously, you're a builder as well with the Roon AI platform, so you're an entrepreneur. Where did it start? Were you always wired that sort of knowledge is power as far as your mindset? Where did the intellectual curiosity come from that makes you not just a brain surgeon, but all these other things as well?
My dad is a physician. He's a pulmonary and critical care doctor in northeastern Pennsylvania. And he is among the most deeply curious people I've ever met. I still remember growing up, there'd always be a stack of journals somewhere in the house, most often by the bathroom. But it was amazing to me that even when he was quote unquote off, he was always reading and learning and trying to become a better doctor, both because he was just naturally curious and fascinated by the science, but also because he just wanted to take better care of his patients. So I think that to me was very inspiring to see someone who was so motivated by excellence. And then when I was a resident, I trained at the University of Washington in Seattle, and my chair at the time was Rich Ellenbogen. He and the faculty I trained with were also deeply concerned and cared about technical excellence. And we had a skull-based lab, for example, in our residency training, which we're really fortunate to have. It was essentially basically a cadaver lab outfitted with all the modern tools that we use, like microscopes where you could practice on cadavers before you actually practice on a human patient. And so I think that idea of creating this infrastructure of learning or conferences where you're just debating ideas back and forth and really not accepting anything less than excellence, that to me was like very motivating and inspiring, and I think influenced me in many ways.
And it's really fascinating. I mean, you tell the story about your father with journals, and you talk about your education with the use of cadaveric, studies and the ability to learn and think about all the amazing technology that's come our way. We're going to talk about that as we get into things about the evolution of how we're training and how we're learning as well. I want to harken back to a story. I'm in medical school, and I know I'm going to go to orthopedics, but they still made us do a little neurosurgery. And I'm actually operating, and it was fascinating. They allowed us to operate, and it was brain surgery cases going on. I remember the attending saying to me, he's like, Scott, when you're about ready to close, and there's irrigation in there, you need to be able to read the New York Times through your irrigant because you can't have even a drop of blood, right? That's going to create pressure. And that really stuck with me. And as I think about brain surgery, the margin of error is really incredible. It's millimeters, right? We don't want to damage the normal tissue as we're trying to eliminate the bad tissue. So when the stakes are that high, it seems to me like that innovation and constant learning has to be essential, right, for you as a neurosurgeon as you're moving in your career and advancing?
Well, first of all, the New York Times anecdote you gave, great anecdotes travel widely, right? I think that the stakes are high. Maybe what I'd argue is, yes, of course, the stakes are high in neurosurgery. And I think but the stakes are no matter where you are in medicine. As an orthopedic surgeon, I think the difference between maybe a great job and a good one could be an athlete returning to play, right? So I think the stakes of quality and quantity of life and the degrees to which you improve them are really dependent on a continuous learning framework. I think an example in neurosurgeries, I recently did a glioma operation. Gliomas are tumors that start in the brain. And in this particular case, the glioma was sitting right on top of motor cortex. So this is the part of the brain that deals with your ability and controls your ability to move. But on the flip side, what we know for these kinds of brain tumors is that maximal safe removal of these tumors is really important because it makes the tumors much more likely to respond to other treatments that we might give, like chemotherapy and radiation. So our goal is to remove as much as possible while at the same time preserving function. So those things can sometimes be in tension because if you're sitting right on top of an eloquent area of the brain, like an area that deals with speech or motor function, like I'm describing in this case, taking out too much tumor might mean the loss of one of those functions, which of course we don't want. And so building a mental infrastructure where you can deal with that high stakes environment, I think is really important because you want to do your best for the patient. And for motor cortex gliomas, we're literally shaving the tumor off that area of the brain. And so I think you have to have the confidence in the training, and the confidence comes with training and experience to be able to do those sorts of things, but the willingness to keep improving so that you get better and better at that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just back from the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgery, where it's our big society meeting where we're exchanging ideas, but that industry is there with all the new and novel things that are approaching, and I'm sure it's the same for neurosurgery. You haven't just been in the operating room. You've stepped out now and you've really thought about humanity and artificial intelligence and how that's going to sort of change. And that's a big leap for a physician. So you got to have a lot of smart people around you as you're getting out of your comfort zone of the things that you're doing. But when it comes to trying anything new, there's always got to be a why. So for example, for the Roon platform, what was your why on saying that it's time to get out of the operating room and try and do something very unique in the world of artificial intelligence?
We started Roon for many reasons, but I think that one of them was just a constant set of observations that our patients were being poorly served by the internet. The internet is supposed to connect us, make us feel better, be this wealth of information that's always available at our fingertips. But I think when it comes to searching for medical information, people were becoming more anxious, not less, more isolated, not less. And it seemed like a real problem. Like we had this infrastructure of the internet, but we didn't really have a solution where people were getting the right information at the right time and not being fed misinformation or disinformation. So that seemed to be like the background of the problem. Very specifically, I had patients who would come to me in my office and say, hey, I saw on Facebook that I should take dog dewormer for my brain tumor, or if I smoke enough marijuana, I will get rid of my brain tumor. And it was really heartbreaking because these are people with real problems that had been unfairly duped by people out there. And so I thought there had to be a better way where everyone on the planet could get a free personalized guide for health powered by the world's best experts. So that's what we built initially, but that was the motivation. Our expert base was actually not just physicians. It was physicians, patients, caregivers, people with lived experience. So a patient or caregiver might not tell you how chemotherapy works or why you need chemotherapy, but they can definitely tell you what the experience of chemotherapy is like. And so we wanted all those perspectives. PTOT, speech, social work, really anyone that has expertise around a healthcare question would come together to answer questions in their domain expertise. And then our use of AI was to not just regurgitate the ChatGPT answer, although when we started it, there was no ChatGPT, interestingly, but was not just to regurgitate it, but when using our AI, it would point you to the answers in our network, right? And if we didn't know, if we didn't have the answer, we'd be able to triage it and send it to a human. But AI was really used for kind of care navigation and getting you to the right expert who could answer your question. And so from that perspective, it was really successful and something we're really proud of.
And so from there now, you're opening up another aspect of the platform, which is the physician-to-physician platform. So where did that come from? Was there a call from the physician community to say that we're concerned about all this data and all the things that are coming through and have conversations about what the best treatments are and the best indications, et cetera?
It was several things. I think one of them is just relative to timing, right? Science and expertise seem to be under siege And so we have these weird headwinds that are affecting medicine and health. Physicians are often feeling squeezed nowadays because of all the revenue pressures that are in every health system. And so I think that's part of the timing. Separately, though, I think the physicians in our network who are building the patient product really kept saying again and again that we love that Roon is this place where we can share knowledge with patients, but are you building anything for us where we can share knowledge amongst ourselves? And we heard that enough that it was really interesting because actually there's many social media platforms, right? There's Twitter or X, Facebook, Threads, Instagram, LinkedIn, take your pick, right? Where people are on the platform commenting, discussing, etc. But there really isn't a home for medicine online, truly, right? Where people are coming together to collaborate, communicate, share knowledge at scale. And so we thought, after hearing that enough, that it was worth exploring. And that's why we jumped right into building Roon for Doctors.
That's awesome. So, what I find interesting about Roon, and this is where I want to get your context on this, is that it seems like Roon for physicians in particular is going to be really a great balance. You're going to have the large language models, but you're also bringing the physicians in to have conversations and interactions with one another while being able to share that data and stimulate conversation. So it seems to me like this is a very unique concept and idea of harmonizing and synergy of the human interaction with AI for the benefit of human healthcare.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Pick your LLM. It doesn't matter which one it is. ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, they're all functioning within a few percentage points of each other. And eventually they'll all converge, not actually in terms of being the same product, but in terms of performance. And the differentiator there is going to be really what the data is. And ultimately, all those platforms are going to have access to reasonably similar data. And so what our platform or platforms like us can do is actually have interesting data that is not available anywhere else. And the data here is really the community and making the community available to each other, right? So I imagine a world where no matter where you are in the world, no matter what language you are in the world, if you're a doctor, you can get the knowledge you need when you need it. You can tap into the collective wisdom of your colleagues. Whether you're a learner, like a resident or fellow, whether you're someone who's very senior in your career, wanting to learn new things from people who are innovating and who are younger than you, it doesn't really matter. Like you can tap into the Roon network and get the information you need. And I think what makes that possible is that we're very privileged to be amongst this professional group of physicians, right? Physicians are not just deeply curious, but also hopefully deeply collaborative in most aspects. And so how do we unlock all of that knowledge that's trapped in people's heads, that's trapped in conferences, that's trapped in the surgeon's head that's been operating for 40 years? How do we unlock all of that? And so I think the potential power of Roon is that we can do that. We can create an infrastructure and system where knowledge can get to the right person at the right time. And in the process, hopefully allow people to have fun, right? I think Roon, at the end of the day, if it's not fun, interesting, and useful, it won't be used. And so we're really taking a lot of time and effort to make it that, to make it a place that inspires joy, that is clinically useful, and is something that's really valuable in your practice.
I have to say, I'm in complete agreement with Rohan on this. In medicine, there's more information out there than ever before, but not all of it is good. And when the stakes are brain surgery, having the most up-to-date information is in everyone's best interest. That is why knowledge sharing is so important. Even in the setting of AI, one of the best resources we still have is each other. So it makes perfect sense that expertise should only be a click away. It got me thinking, when a platform like this incorporates AI in real time, what does it actually look like when doctors challenge each other to change the conversation? So next, I asked Rohan to share a story, a moment when he saw physicians using the platform in a way he had never seen before. But first, a quick word. This episode of Smart Medicine is powered by Veradigm. If you're a healthcare leader looking to make smarter decisions with your data or unlock the power of digital tools, be sure to connect with the team at Veradigm. And now back to the conversation. So Ron, let's get practical when it comes to Roon, right? Do you have any examples of the knowledge sharing that you've seen with physicians online that have truly made a difference for patient care?
Yeah, so physicians are having all kinds of conversations on Roon, which has been really exciting to see. But certainly curbside consults is definitely a use case. And one that comes to mind, which I thought was very fascinating, was a doctor, I believe a family practice doctor, asked a question about something related to sexual health. And had to do with a metabolic imbalance and endocrinology and all of this. And what was super fascinating was that in the replies to the question, it was an unbelievable smattering of multidisciplinary folks. There was neurologists, neurosurgeons, OBGYNs, endocrinologists, everyone weighing in. And I could not, as an observer to this, I could not for the life of me think of the last time I'd seen something like that. It reminded me actually of being in medical school, because that's the last time you're sitting with a group of folks who are all doing different things, not fully formed yet as doctors, but, just trying to figure it out together, right? And that was really cool for me to see, is doctors doing that. Because as you know, Scott, we're so hyper siloed. Like in my normal clinical practice as a brain tumor surgeon, I'm literally only working with medical oncologists, neuro-oncologists, and radiation oncologists, occasionally neurologists and ophthalmologists. So that's it. I don't really interact with the rest of medicine except for like a medical clearance, right? When I need that. But to see this kind of ability to watch other people discuss cases in real time has been really cool, just to level up my own knowledge of medicine. Like I've learned a ton about nephrology recently, which I didn't intend to learn about, but that was actually pretty fascinating to learn about the treatment of hyponatremia and why it's kind of debated within the nephrology community. I would never have actually happened upon that otherwise if it weren't for the nephrologists on Roon. So I think learning together and in public is something that's been really fun about Roon.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it. You don't even talk to your colleagues about lumbar spine fusion within neurosurgery, right?
Yes.
I mean, you're so specialized. It's the same for me, like knees and shoulders, left and right. Like I barely talk to other subspecialists. And this is, I think, really important for our listeners, is that it's all specialties of medicine that have access to Roon, right? And so your anecdote is really so important, whether it's a primary care, neurologist, nephrologist, cardiologist, neurologist, neurosurgeon, they're all there. And so then we can all share and learn in a really very unique way, which, as you've stated, is not something that I can actually ever recall, being able to have all of those specialists be able to be in a single chat, having a conversation about something that you can learn about. So I think that's really quite fascinating, and probably just one of the aspects that we haven't quite figured out yet as to how Roon is going to be such a valuable tool.
And I think what's cool is that it can be both very broad, like the example I gave, but also very specific. Imagine 20 orthopedic surgeons debating some new technology related to ACL repair, right? I'm just making it up. I don't know.
No, it's pretty good. You got a pretty good. That's one of the hot topics right now. That's good.
But yeah, I mean, and it can zoom in and zoom out, right? And that's the cool part of it. And I think the other thing is other doctors will discover this stuff if it's not in their lane. And so imagine like the very best ideas, very best technologies that are being discussed, debated, implemented in your field. Imagine other fields learning about it much faster than they otherwise would have, right? So if you're a referring doc, if you're a primary care doc and your patient has back pain, actually there's now a bunch of new technologies.
We've talked a lot about collaboration in this episode, but when Rohan mentioned the primary care doctor, I found myself wondering, beyond sounding like a good idea, does doctor-to-doctor collaboration actually improve patient care? The evidence says yes. 2024 systematic review and meta-analysis looked at 54 studies on teamwork in primary care and found that team-based care was linked to better outcomes in measures like blood pressure and hemoglobin A1C for diabetics. Now, there's an important nuance here. Those teams did not all look the same, so this is not a one-size-fits-all formula. But the big picture is clear. When healthcare professionals work together better, patients benefit. And that is really what this comes down to. We're still trying to get the right knowledge to the right people at the right time. If technology can help close that gap and connect doctors to expertise more easily, that is a truly meaningful step forward.
If you're a primary care doc and you're patient has back pain. Actually, there's now a bunch of new technologies, but like, how do you make sure that referring doctors are aware of like interesting things that have come down the pike in subspecialty medicine so they can navigate their patients to the best care?
Yeah, it's a great forum that will be the touch of your cell phone or on your computer where you have a minute instead of looking at Amazon for whatever's next. Maybe we can find the next cure for cancer, right? I mean, I think that this is going to be an incredibly valuable tool, and we really appreciate all the time and energy you put into it.
Yeah, thank you for saying that.
In the analog world in which we've all grown up, especially within the medical world, we've relied on the mentors that you've talked about, your professors that have stuck with you, and these anecdotes and the things that you've learned with your own experience over the years. But at the end of the day, it's still that physician with that individual patient making a clinical decision. So if we can bring collective minds from around the world that are true experts in what they do in a place in which those ideas can be shared, you can develop consensus perhaps on a diagnosis or a recommended treatment or a conversation about a new paper that came out. Is this correct? Is it not? Should this become the standard of care? And I think that we have to, our role is going to be, LinkedIn is maybe going to be for your business interactions, right? And Facebook's to keep in touch with the family, and Instagram is for the cool kids. But the idea of this, the developing a place in which physicians can come interacting with artificial intelligence to provide tremendous amount of information that we can then collate and then have consensus and conversation, I think is an amazing thing. So congratulations.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Let's make pretend I'm a brand new user, just turned on my computer, heard all about this Roon thing, and I'm going to give it a try. And so I pop on, walk me through so our listeners understand as well what the process would be if I want to get on and jump into a chat or start a conversation or maybe have a very specific question. Walk us through the details of how that would happen.
Yeah, so today, Roon is open for U.S. physicians. It'll be open to the international physician community in the coming months, but for now it's U.S. only. And that's mostly so we can validate every user that comes in and
good point. We got to make sure we got real doctors on there. Thank you.
Exactly. And so go to roon.com or go to the iPhone App Store and download it there. We just ask you a few pieces of demographic information, and we use AI to actually help build your profile super quickly so that you don't have to spend a lot of time building it like you do on LinkedIn. And hopefully that's a small moment of delight, right? To see what we can glean about you from public information, which you can edit and then approve. And then once you're in, and it'll feel today, in some ways very similar to a combination of LinkedIn and Twitter or X, in that there's a feed where you can post about anything. It's a blank canvas, right? One of the products that we launched with that has been really well received is something called Roon Rounds. Rounds is a nod to the daily collaboration we have as doctors, right? So with Rounds, it's really incented or built to incentivize deep, multi-perspective conversation, not just the LinkedIn comment section. This is like where you're really giving thoughtful answers to questions. And the questions can be anything. It can be practical, policy, clinical. What's the impact of this new FDA drug approval? Someone asked, how do you avoid burnout as a practicing physician? So it can be really about anything. And then once you ask the question, you can answer it. 5 people can answer it. 5,000 people can answer it. And once people start answering, you can go through and read each individual perspective. But then we use AI in a fun way here, which is to synthesize the perspectives of everyone that contributed to create like a New York Times style article that weaves together the perspectives of the contributors. And so it's a living artifact that changes as more people add perspectives. And that's fun, right? Because the thing changes, and it's something you can watch and keep track of to see how the perspectives are additive or debated or whatever it is. It's a fun way of collaborating in public.
So it's actively synthesizing something, not just grabbing, LLM stuff from the World Wide Web. And how about notifications? I'm an orthopedic surgeon. I'm super excited about periprosthetic infections. Is there a way to so you can get some information that pops up when it's right and ready and something you want to be a part of?
Yeah, so that is where the holy grail that we're always moving towards, which is like deep personalization. There's no single type of doctor, right? Doctors are like the rest of humanity and varied in exactly what they would want out of a platform like this. Some are going to only want clinical work. Some are really just interested in public policy and health policy. Some are only really interested in medical education. And so we have to build for all those different use cases. And the way we build for that is through deep personalization. So as you use the product, as you tell us what you're interested in, we can more and more personalize it for you. So that is a journey we're on and is an ongoing. And so part of making that journey or that personalization work in practice is building these communities intentionally. Right. So you can see a ton of nephrologists on the platform, pulmonary doctors, a burgeoning orthopedics group on Roon as well, which has been fun to see, cardiologists, because once you start seeing your people there, I think you automatically feel more at home.
And it's really well produced and put together. So tell us about the smart techie people that you've partnered with, because this doesn't look like this brand new little startup that you guys have put together. Who are those collaborators that have really helped you to get this thing off the ground?
My two co-founders are named Vikram Bhaskaran and Roon Ranganathan. And what's interesting about them is they're not doctors. They were senior people from Pinterest, one on the business side and one on the engineering side. And that was very intentional. We wanted to bring together really incredible people from not just medicine, but also technology and design. Because I think if you look at most doctor products, they don't look like they're designed using the best of technology or design, right? It seems like sterile white everywhere. It's not calming. It's not fun, right? We want to bring together the best of all these different disciplines to create something fun and special for physicians. And in addition, we're very multidisciplinary. So one of the people I work most closely with at Roon, his name is Josh Lang. He's our chief medical officer, and he's a cardiologist at the Brigham. And he is incredible, not just at cardiology, but also at this idea of being a community builder. And so one of the things about Roon that's been very intentional is to build all these different disciplines together, bring them together so that we can build something really special for doctors.
Yeah, we've got to get you to come out to San Francisco next year to Doc SF, which is Stefan Abini's conference, but it is all about this. It takes all the Silicon Valley technology whizzes, puts them into a room with healthcare physicians, and it's amazing the stuff that comes out when you take those people where there's cross-pollination that sort of bring their ideas together. And technology is long overdue in medicine, so it's great to see this type of interaction.
Yeah, so medicine is really hard to do alone. I think no matter how smart you are, how experienced you are, there's always blind spots. And especially given how subspecialized we are in medicine nowadays, it's really hard to know exactly the right thing to do for your patients, especially when they're complex, where information is incomplete, and where the consequences of missing something can be really important and can be enormous. And so I think of tuberculosis as one example, right? Like an infectious disease doctor here in New York may hardly ever see one, but then there's doctors in TB clinics in India or Africa who see this all the time. So imagine a world where they're all collaborating, where language isn't an issue, right? Where the best practices from different places can be brought to bear. So I just think that we talked about reducing the margin for error earlier. And I think that physician collaboration allows us to pressure test our thinking, help us catch what we might miss, allows us to level up the way we think about problems. I'm hopeful that Roon can be all those things, right? To be the infrastructure where all of that happens. Because I think ultimately the best of medicine rarely comes from one person thinking alone. I think it's from great clinicians thinking together. I think the more we have of that, the better health and medicine become.
This has been a great conversation. We appreciate what you're building here, your amazing work that you're doing as a brain surgeon, but then also what you're doing here to bring physicians together. Really seems to me like that is smart medicine. You're really helping to drive healthcare forward. It's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a real pleasure. And if anyone's interested, if you're a physician in the US, you can check it out at roon.com.
What I love about this episode is the reminder that medicine has always been a team sport. Expertise absolutely still matters. The question is not whether we need it, of course we do. The question is how we take the years of knowledge, living inside the heads of great physicians, and make it more accessible to the people who need it most. Honestly, I think we do that on this podcast too. The pursuit of knowledge in medicine is as important as it is noble. And if technology can help, that is revolutionary. And to me, that is smart medicine. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, leave us a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. I am Dr. Scott Sigman, signing off till next time.
The products, platforms, and services mentioned in this episode are for informational purposes only. Their inclusion does not constitute an endorsement, recommendation, or affiliation by Veradigm. Veradigm is not responsible for the accuracy, content, or availability of any third-party products or services discussed. Listeners are encouraged to conduct their own evaluation before making any decisions based on the information presented. For more information about Veradigm solutions, visit veradigm.com.